Hey everybody, Dave here. This is a single video in my 15-part series for Let's Build in Blue Prism using Notepad++. I'm assuming that if this isn't part one, then you have seen the video prior to this. Let's get started. All right, so let's take a quick look at the requirements. We've got that major requirement that we need to run a process once a day on multiple resources to set the configuration of Notepad++ based on the various configuration requirements indicated in the minor requirements. And so we've got some nice to haves. We'd like to be able to change the configuration settings that the bot uses without a code change. So we don't want to hard code all of this stuff. Things like when we go in and set standard icons to be selected, we don't want to hard code that. We want to make it take an input of some kind, whether that's environment variables or an input file or whatever the case is. It needs to take an input and then do the selected or not selected based upon what it's given. Same thing for all the rest of these configurations. These are all going to be in settings, preferences, and in view. There's word wrap. We'll be doing some different things like that. So let's go ahead and start on the automation now. To start off with this, we can either start a process that will show us what the business logic eventually will be, or we can go ahead and go into the object, create one of those, and start working an application modeler. I'm thinking that it would be easier to go into application modeler first because we have specific items that we know we need to work with. We can build out an object that makes sense, and then we can go to the process to use it. Just want to mention really quick that sometimes the way I like to do it and is even when I'm doing something like this, where I'm just building something out really quick, I'm not doing a ton of design or being really careful with it necessarily, is I like to go into Process Studio and drop note stages in there to say, here's step 1, here's step 2, here's step 3, and that kind of drives my focus for what I'm developing. But in this case, we know exactly what we're going to develop based upon these requirements, and someone should be able to design a reusable object without even talking to the person who is going to make the process. Now, I'm going to be both people, so it'll be a little easier, but that should work anyways, even if you did split it up like that. So let's go into an object. Have I not created? Okay, I'm going to create a group. We'll call this something to do with what we're making, Notepad++. Then we'll create the process folder, or group, Notepad++ configuration. And then inside the object, we'll probably just end up creating one object for this, but I'm creating a group because sometimes you might need multiple objects, and then also this just gives us a way to separate it from other things that have been developed in this environment. So I'm going to create this, call it just Notepad++. We'll call it Notepad++ settings, and then maybe we'll come back and make another object that helps you to deal with things like getting the text and setting the text or things like that. Exposed actions to set the configuration of Notepad++. Finish. All right, we've created an object, Notepad++ settings, and let's go into it. Let's set up our object now, and the first thing we're going to do is go into Application Modeler, and we'll start up a new application for Notepad++. This is a Windows application as opposed to these other types. I'm going to click Next. My application is launched from an executable file. It doesn't effectively matter what you choose here in the end, but I'm going to choose the first one. Then I'm going to navigate to where that application is, and then click on the exe, open, next. I'm not worried about command line parameters for this. Don't care about a working directory, and we don't need to change anything else. So now that we've got our application model, we're going to have to attach to the application. So it's actually already running, so I'm not going to click launch. And let's bring up the application here. So what I need is an attach action. Looks like Notepad++. The wording there will be the same for the window title with all, yeah. Doesn't matter what tab I have open, Notepad++ is always there. So I'm going to use that text to attach to. I'll just rename this first action as attach. And I'm not going to make a very robust attach action. Drag this root node, attach, and then we're just going to attach with the window title. Star, Notepad++, star. You know, I guess in this case, we could do Notepad++ settings. Oh, right. I'm not looking at here. Notepad++, right, that's the name of it. Okay. I was looking up here and thinking like, oh yeah, it's Notepad++ settings. I could just match that window text. Doesn't help when you look at the title of Blue Prism there, Dave. So process name, I guess I could do this, but I don't think it's really going to matter for us. And I'm not going to need any of this other stuff. So let's rename that attach F3 to connect these. Reset. I'm going to run it. All right, so it'll... Right. There you go. Silly mistake. So I'd have to go back and check this, but I think what's happening is I named this object Notepad++ settings, and I just tried to attach to a window that has the text Notepad++ in it with a star. I have stars on both sides, so it's a wildcard. So I think it's trying to attach to, it found both the Blue Prism's Object Studio window, and it found the Notepad++ window. So I am actually going to put the process name in here, and I'm going to let's go look at the processes that are running. All right, we're back. I tried to go look at the processes that are listed when you go to Task Manager, but I apparently can't show that on the screen. My recording software stopped showing the screen. It stopped doing like a screen share after I brought that up. So just take my word for it. I looked into Task Manager and saw the name of the Notepad++ process it's running. And so what I'm going to do is type into process name here, Notepad++ star, because it has a longer name than that. And then we're going to click OK. Run it. Okay, so now we have avoided attaching to the Blue Prism window, and we are supposedly attached to Notepad++. Sometimes what you'll find, and actually quite frequently, you'll try to attach, and the way that Blue Prism works, it's maybe a little less intuitive compared to other RPA tools, is when you're attaching to various windows and stuff. You don't you don't click on the window and Blue Prism determines for itself how to attach to that. You generally need to give it something to start with. So you have to tell it kind of like, hey, what's the window title of my application and stuff like that. So sometimes what you might have is it'll attach and it'll say, hey, we've successfully attached, but we haven't really attached to the right thing. You're attached to the wrong frame or the wrong child index of the process or whatever it is. So the way you find out whether or not you've attached to the right thing is to bring up Application Modeler, and let's see if we can show both things at once. Am I going to be able to do that? Yeah. So I bring up Application Modeler, and I'll go ahead and try to spy, and this will fail if I'm not attached to this application. It'll throw an error. So we'll just do the whole window itself. All right, so it worked. It returned us these attributes of this window, which would not work if we weren't attached to it, as I said. Let's highlight. Looking good. Okay, let's go through and start spying the various parts of the application that we need to work with. I'm not going to even spy anything unless we need to work with it right away, and our major requirements specifically point out the minor requirements down here. It skips the nice to haves. So while that would be great, that's not something I need to do up front. I'm going to tack that on at the end, or maybe in a second iteration of the development, I'll come back and do that. All right, thanks for watching this part of this 15-part series in Let's Build in Blue Prism, where we work with Notepad++. I'll see you next time.